Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'll start with the invocation led by Councilmember Seema Singh, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Andrew Roberto. Please rise as you're able.
Tonight, I would just like to have a minute of silence for yesterday was Memorial Day, and I know we all celebrate, but it's a day that we should also honor and respect. So a minute of silence, please. Okay, maybe not exactly a minute, but thank you. Blessed be.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Would you please call roll?
Councilwoman Fugit, Councilwoman Helsley, Councilwoman McKenzie. Here. Councilwoman Parker.
Here.
Councilwoman Ryder. Here. Councilman Roberto.
Here.
Councilwoman Singh. Yes. Vice Mayor Smith.
Here.
Councilman Thomas.
Okay, that's 8 of 9. Okay, 8 of 9 present. Next, approval of minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any items to be withdrawn from tonight's agenda? Are there any items to be postponed? Are there any items requested to be added? Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Second.
Motion made to approve the consent agenda has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, time now for my mayor's report. We have a busy night ahead, so I'll keep it brief. Just wanted to start by inviting you tomorrow to a special event celebrating the first multifamily property to be made more energy efficient through a new program helping KUB customers save energy and money. So 80 units at Summercrest Apartments have been weatherized, and work will begin on another 76-unit property in Knoxville this summer. To celebrate this milestone, come out tomorrow morning, 3930 Summercrest Way, that's up in the Fountain City area, at 9 a.m. It's a big deal because so many of these investments have been aimed at single-family homes, so to be able to help our apartment renters save money on their utility bills is a really big deal. Also wanted to remind everybody that it's school's out, summer's here, so that means our Kiderific events are kicking off next week. These events are completely free. They offer crafts, food, music, and family-friendly activities every Wednesday throughout the summer. Each week, Kiderific is held at a different location. The first one is at Baxter Avenue Park at Fire Station 3. So that's in North Knoxville, just off of Central. The fun kicks off at 10 and goes until 1. So please, families and kids or people taking care of kids, please take advantage of these Kiderific events. So finally, our rules of decorum, a quick reminder, those who wish to speak either to a specific agenda item or during public forum should sign up with the city recorder before 4 p.m. Thank you, Ms. Hopper, for serving as our city recorder this evening. Also, our rules state that remarks must be germane to the question ahead of the assembly. That is, statements must have a bearing on whether the pending motion should be adopted. Those who fail to adhere to these rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. Please, also, I've accidentally skipped this line. Please do not use profanity. And when speaking to specific agenda items, please remember to stay on topic. Those who fail to adhere to these rules may be ruled out of order and asked to step away from the podium. For those who are listening, please note you may not disrupt a public meeting from the audience. Those who do may be asked to leave. Thank you in advance for respecting these rules. And that concludes my mayor's report. Are there any reports from council members? Vice Mayor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I was asked by a First District resident to pass along a compliment. Last week on Southwood Drive, a tree fell down and blocked the street, and within 30 minutes, 311 Center for Service Innovation had dispatched some Renault from Public Works. The tree was quickly removed. An additional tree was removed as well, and the whole thing took less than an hour from the phone call. So I want to pass along that shout out to 311 and Public Works for their work on Southwood Drive.
Wonderful. They do a great job. Any other reports from council members? Okay, then let me get my glasses. We'll move on to item 8A, please.
8A is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Rick Blackburn and Cameron Bolin and the appointment of Tony Allen to the Design Review Board.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. I believe Tony Allen is here with his wife and son. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your willingness to serve on this board. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
8B is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Lola Alapo to the Visit Knoxville Board of Directors.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
8C is a resolution confirming the appointment of Captain Tammy DeBoe and Harrison Forbes to the Knoxville Animal Control Board.
Second.
Was there a second? Yeah. Motion made to approve and seconded, and Mr. Forbes and Captain DeBoe are here. Would you please raise your hands? Thank you both for your willingness to serve on this important committee. Any questions, or board, I guess, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
8D is a resolution approving the appointment of Allison Page to the Metropolitan Knoxville Airport Authority.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
8E is a resolution reappointing Bradford Redding to serve as the at-large Seat A representative to the Knoxville Golf Course Advisory Committee.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9A is an ordinance making and fixing the annual appropriations for the several departments, agencies, and funds of the City of Knoxville for the fiscal period beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025, and providing the authority to reappropriate non-project-related encumbrances at the end of fiscal year 23-24 into fiscal year 24-25.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, we have 3 people signed up to speak in favor of item 9A. First is Officer Detective Jason Booker. If you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Mayor. Jason Booker, 1615 Huron. I'd like to thank the mayor and council for the opportunity to briefly speak on this matter. I've been employed by the City of Knoxville Police Department for over 25 years. I'm currently assigned to the Criminal Investigations Bureau as a detective. One of my collateral duties is that of the elected KPD employee representative. As the KPD employee representative, some of my duties include working as a spokesman for the members of KPD and a go-between between our chief's office, the mayor's administration, and other City of Knoxville departments. I'm here this evening to speak in favor of the proposed budget and increase in pay to the PO ranks. KPD is a great example of doing more with less. It is no secret that we are, not to use this term lightly, severely understaffed. Our current staffing level is 347 sworn officers. Our authorized strength at the time is 416. Using those provided numbers, we are 69 officers short on our authorized strength. To put that into perspective for you, we currently have 18 squads of men and women working in the Field Operations Bureau. A lot of you know that as it was called the Patrol Division for many years. Those squads range in strength from 10 officers down to 4. That's an average, quick average of 6.6 officers per squad. If you take the average staffing of a patrol squad versus the level of our staffing and authorized strength now, we are close to being 10 entire patrol squads short of officers. I use the patrol field operations numbers as an example because those officers are the most easily identifiable representation of the Knoxville Police Department and are oftentimes the most recognizable symbol of the city government. Thank you for your time and attention on this matter.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak in favor of the budget is Zoe Scott. If you could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Hello, Zoe Scott speaking on behalf of Bike Walk Knoxville, 903 Wingate. Bike Walk Knoxville, as many of you know, is a community nonprofit organization focused on making our city a better place to bike and walk for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. And on behalf of the organization, I am proud to support this proposed budget. With almost $11.7 million budgeted for essential roadway safety improvements such as repairs to roads, bridges, guardrails, signage, signals, and other basic safety assets across the city, this budget represents a commitment to making our streets safe for everyone who uses them. This council has consistently supported Vision Zero, the goal of eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on Knoxville streets through votes on the Vision Zero resolution, and earlier this year, a budget amendment to allow for the hiring of a Vision Zero coordinator. We are thrilled that this position has since been filled and look forward to Cody continuing to work alongside Tom and the rest of his team to continue to advance the Vision Zero campaign. By including a line item for Vision Zero in this budget, the city is confirming its commitment to projects that will save lives. With a focus on data-driven, quick-build projects, this project will empower the city to make important changes with immediate positive safety impacts. Bike Walk Knoxville is grateful to Mayor Cannon and her administration for their continued and ongoing support to Vision Zero and its alignment with the city's goals of public safety, healthy and connected neighborhoods, and a clean and resilient future. Bike Walk Knoxville has been thrilled to see grants like Safe Streets and Roads for All and Reconnecting Communities come to Knoxville, and we look forward to the way that these dollars will continue to make our community safer and more connected. However, we know that the budget is in many ways the strongest statement of a city's priorities. We're proud to see the investment in various aspects of infrastructure and improvements, specifically looking at cyclists and pedestrians. And specifically, I want to highlight the increase in funding for the citywide traffic calming campaign. We urge the city to continue to invest in these elements because if we want to achieve the goal of a connected city where parents can walk their kids to school or folks can ride their bikes to work, we have to invest in the infrastructure that makes these things possible. We know that cyclists and pedestrians are our most vulnerable roadway users. We must commit to designing and creating a city that serves their transportation needs, and this budget stands on that commitment. I urge you to support this proposed budget and to continue to support a Knoxville that is walkable, bikeable, and livable for all of its citizens and residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Chris Hinkle from the Firefighters Association. If you'd start by stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Chris Hinkle for the Knoxville Firefighters Association, 614 North Central Street, 37917. First off, good evening. Thank you all for letting me speak. I'll try to make this short and sweet. First off, apologize for being sweaty and nasty. I worked 72 hours at the fire hall, went home, mowed all day, so came straight here, so I apologize. You guys are good, y'all in the front row, I apologize. First off, I want to say Thursday, I think we had a great employee rep meeting. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff, talked about causes, concerns, and I appreciate you letting me come here tonight to talk. A lot of what you were here, if you were in that meeting, will be the same of what I said then. We appreciate the increase to our EMS pay incentive, so please don't take what I say as that we don't, because I promise we do, and it's something that's very well needed. The problem is leaving the basics out was not right. There's no way for me to say it is. There's no way for me to make it better. Leaving our basic EMTs out of it was not right. It's disappointing, disheartening for those folks, as we talked about Thursday. And Mayor, I told you then that it's not completely your fault. Some of it is our fault because you are not educated on the way we do things, the ranks in which our EMS system works, and the way that we fully operate. So that's on us. You can blame it on me if you want to, but that's on us. I also proposed, with the help of President McAfee and Chief Sharp, to put together a full-on EMS demonstration at the Union Hall and have everybody there so you can actually learn what it's really like out there, what we really do. Like a recruit told me in this last recruit academy, this is not Chicago Fire. It is the real deal, and what we do out there on the streets is different, not excluding basic EMTs. Basic EMTs play a vital role in our department. There is not a way in the world we can function without them. And I'll get to numbers in a second here to tell you that. It's also not their fault. It's also not the basic EMT's fault that that's the level they're trained to. That is the level we train them to in the academy. State made decisions a long time ago, a couple years ago, to change from IV Tech to advanced to basic, and it messed some things up. That is the level we train them to. So they have done everything that is expected of them. Our department is getting ready to put on a AEMT class, hopefully this fall, for those to transition up from basic to AEMT. It's a huge undertaking. It has to involve the state, national registry, and a lot of instructors and a lot of paperwork. But our department, with the help of Chief Sharp, is willing to do that, and that is the goal. In the meeting Thursday, Mayor, you said you saw it as an incentive to go on to AEMT school. That's one way to look at it. But right now, they're not really offered that at AEMT. The way I see it is a thank you. It's not much, but it's a thank you for the work you do. They're out there with us every single day. And that's just a little thank you and appreciation for what they do. And trust me, what they do is a lot, and hopefully we'll get to show that to you. It also helps with retention. I also mentioned to you that you come into our academy at this pay, your EMS goes to this with a basic, and their surrounding departments, I will not name their names out of respect, where our basic EMTs we just trained can leave and go work for $5,000 or $6,000 more. So just this thank you would help in that situation. I've talked to a lot of the basic EMTs that look forward to going to the advanced EMT school, but it's going to take time. Every single person in this room knows dealing with the state is never quick. It is going to take time. So I brought some numbers. I know you guys like numbers. So with KFD, we have 118 basic EMTs, 153 advanced EMTs, 32 paramedics, and proudly 12 critically care trained paramedics. Total of 315, 118 basics. The EMT class we're going to put on this fall, 16 weeks. They will attend class 2 days a week. The other days, they are going to work their regular shifts. So say your shift's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're in class Tuesday, Thursday. Class, as of right now, will be 20 students apiece. If you take 118 basic EMTs, that's not including people we add in the recruit classes. 118 we have right now, divide by 20, that's 6 EMT classes. 16 EMS classes. If you did them back to back to back, that's 1 year, 11 months. That's not possible. It will take at least, if you did 2 classes a year, 3 years to get everybody trained to that level.
Thank you so much for your comments.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good night.
Council members, that concludes the 3 slots for people speaking in favor of the budget. Just as a point of information, thanks to Chief Sharp and the association's advocacy a few years ago, this council adopted a budget where every single firefighter will get a 4.2% raise if this budget is adopted, every single one. So I just didn't want to, I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. They're even the ones with who choose not to get the advanced or paramedic. So just FYI. Any comments or questions by council? Seeing none? Councilmember Roberto.
Yep, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, couldn't see.
Are we done with all the speakers?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure. I was glad to see in the budget that supervisor pay for KPD remained competitive. I think that's great. However, this budget does address patrol pay, which did need an increase. And so to remain competitive, I'm really glad to see that the new starting salary be just a little over $56,000. That's really important to make sure we can deal with the shortfall, maintaining folks that we have and be able to deal with recruits. Also thinking about what we heard from our firefighters, you know, we need to remain competitive with our fire services. So certainly, I think a compensation study in 24-25 for our firefighters to make sure they remain competitive with other East Tennessee departments is something we really need to be looking at in the next budget cycle after this one. When we're thinking about challenges that we have for our uniformed officers, but then for everybody that lives in Knoxville, you know, housing, which we're going to talk about a lot and is in this budget, for having affordable housing. Housing is critical on many levels for what we need to do here in Knoxville, but when you're trying to recruit uniformed officers or people to work for the city, that's a challenge as well. We need, our estimates had been about 500 units a year in a recent workshop on this. And, you know, I think it's critical that we continue efforts and focus on doing mixed use on the commercial corridors, because the only place that we're going to be able to address the kind of need we have for housing. You know, this budget does not issue any new debt, and it continues the trend that we've seen of meeting our obligations in a fiscally responsible manner, and then steadily decreasing the burden the taxpayers have on any debts that occur, and providing for long-term economic stability. You're not seeing any cuts, you're seeing increases, and you're still seeing services. You know, just thinking about sidewalks that you've seen on, I mean, just in the second district, on Kingston Pike, we've seen additions of bike lanes and sidewalks. That means that people can use the bus more and they can walk more to and from. And so we need to see more of that continuing, and so I'm glad to see that. We're seeing an increase in the affordable housing. It's going up about 7.6%. We've got money in here for traffic calming, which is really important and necessary, and about $175 million is going to support Knox County schools from the local option sales tax. That's $175 million. Mayor, the only thing I would say is we don't have any money for new sidewalks this year, but hopefully we can see that next year. But I plan to vote for the budget, and I just wanted to highlight some of those good efforts that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. I have shared some of my concerns at our first reading on the budget, and those concerns remain. I think we have some very urgent needs when it comes to our city staff and the cost of living in Knoxville. And I appreciate hearing from both police and fire. I also keep in mind our other city workers who are at a lower end of that pay scale than the ones that we're even talking about. Especially with how we are choosing to pay for the salary increase, it concerns me how we'll be able to address other salary needs in our city in the next few years. And it's changes that are happening so quickly, I haven't fully been able to wrap my head around it. Because when we discussed budget projections in February, we had a better sense, we were more hopeful of what we would see from that local option sales tax than what was realized. And after seeing that updated number, choosing to still move forward with the salary increase, I do not feel like it's the best decision. I'm also concerned, as I said before, that we're not doing a full review of what may be the issues with recruitment and retention, whether it is salary, whether it is benefits, whether there are other issues. We've been talking about the internal climate, the culture within KPD. Could that potentially be part of the issue with recruitment? I'm also concerned about our investment in affordable housing. I'm glad that that was brought up. And I'm appreciative of this report that was shared with us in February about our various affordable housing strategies. I wish the report would start at 2021 when we adopted the ordinance. The fact that the inventory goes back to 2019 makes things confusing because a lot of these projects were approved under a different city council, or at least the city council that predated me. And we had a prior administration who celebrated on their way out, adding 4,500 units to our affordable housing stock. Now we're double counting some of these numbers. And so it's hard to gauge where we're at with meeting our goals, even the 500 per year investment, which we're not coming anywhere close to. And then if you dig into it even deeper, you might find some, apartments that we've provided funding for that are income restricted, but they also have a minimum income. I think it was Pond Gap Flats, or maybe it was Young High Flats I was looking into, and you have to make at least $11,000. It was Young High Flats to qualify to live there, right? So if we look back at our chart, the second largest category of renters with a lack of inventory are those making under $10,000 a year. If we look at where our investments are going towards that income range, it's largely Austin Homes, Revitalizing Western, which were projects already ongoing. We've come in to help with them, but they were already ongoing. Those units were scheduled to be redone, as KCDC needs to do with all of our public housing.
Councilmember Parker, I'm going to give your colleagues who have their lights on a chance to speak. Vice Mayor Smith and then Councilmember Helsley.
Thank you, Mayor. I plan to support this budget. I just want to kind of call out a few things. We met a week and a half ago and spent 8 hours together, and the public probably didn't have time to watch all that or attend, but some of the things that stuck out to me, some of which have already been mentioned, but recruiting and rewarding both KPD and KFD, continued investment in the Affordable Housing Fund of $8 million. Again, that's just city dollars, so like Western and like a lot of other developments around our community, our dollars are the smallest dollars that go into the whole development. So $8 million won't do a lot, but that's not all we're working with. I'm really excited about the capital investments in East Knoxville, particularly the fire station in Burlington and additional investments that will be used, again, piggybacking federal funds and the investment I think that will happen in East Knoxville in a very careful, thoughtful way. I'm really excited about. There's a significant dollars in different pieces, but in very meaningful ways in pedestrian infrastructure across South Knoxville. I'm just really excited about those items particularly. I did have a question that a lot of folks have asked me about housing for those that need it the most urgent. The low barrier shelter that we have in the community has closed, and so I just want to make sure while we don't have, at least I don't know of, a new plan for a new location to replace that. I just want to make sure that the budget can adapt as needed when that opportunity arises.
Absolutely, and we're working with Aaron Reed and the Joint Office of Housing Stability to try to find a new provider.
Okay. And I just want to make a plug for, I was really enjoyed the joint housing workshop that you hosted with Mayor Jacobs, and I think most people that have a hand in helping those without homes were there and talking about new strategies. But I just want to kind of lean into the need that I heard there for a day resource center. That's been the one thing I've seen in all the communities that do well in making progress on homelessness. We need a place where we can all as a community point people to during the day and say, whatever resources we do have, it's there. And every agency that collaborates with the city has a chair there and is willing to help. Too many times folks fall through the cracks that are within our control. We all need more money locally. We need things like Medicaid expanded that would help in a lot of ways, but the things that are within our control are collaboration. And every agency that serves this population is exhausted and underfunded. And so they don't have enough energy to make the one more call or to keep staffing in a way that they can work after hours and transfer a person who needs resources here. I just think we need a dedicated day center. And so if that opportunity arises as part of Ms. Reed's strategic plan, I would really like to make sure that there's funding available for that as well. That's all for me now.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Helsley.
Thank you, Mayor. I do intend to support this budget, but I know Boyce really wants to talk to me today, right? Don't you, buddy? Well, you can pass it on to Kitrin since she's here.
Yes, ma'am.
For the people who didn't get the pleasure of spending 8 or 10 hours with you the other day, could you just explain we're dipping into the unassigned fund balance to the tune of $15 million?
That's correct.
And that normally doesn't happen, so
No.
do we anticipate this for next year or ongoing, or?
I don't anticipate it for next year. I mean, you know, you take year by year and you do some planning. But yeah, this time, where it's going to be going from 45.2 million down to 30.2 million with the use of 15 million unassigned fund balance. And but the thing to remember is that 30.2 million is still $1.5 million, 1.7 million above like what our past 4-year average has been of 28.5 million. So, you know, it's not something you want to do every year, but we're still in fine shape. And again, you got 20% of the general fund set aside in that stabilization account, 5% set aside in assigned fund balance as part of best practices. So, I mean, we're doing fine, and that was all, the preponderance of that goes toward capital. Is what that is. And a lot of it is there's things that we had started on that we needed to take through to completion. So that's what that's for. But no, I don't see that happening in perpetuity or anything like that.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Councilmember Parker.
Thanks, Mayor. Okay, so back to affordable housing. So I'm worried that we're not working to hit our goals. If we look back to the ordinance, it requires that we invest $1.5 million in permanent supportive housing each year. There is not $1.5 million indicated in our budget. I think it's $1.1 million. I'm going to continue and then.
Okay.
That's a major concern of mine. When talking about the finances, our regular, our salary increase for all city staff was paid by a property tax increase, but that will run out in 2027. It will no longer cover the salary increase in 2027. But now the projections are that other local taxes will be able to cover it. That concerns me, it worries me, because we also have other additional increased cost to cover, and we have additional salary increases to consider. So that does not seem sustainable to me. Let's see, what are the other issues that I had with this budget? Those are the main two. Those are the main two. I'll stop there because there are more, but
Okay. Well, thank you for your,
oh no, I was wrapping up my thoughts. Sorry,
Okay.
wrapping up my thought.
Oh, okay. Sure, sorry. Go ahead.
So those are my main concerns. There are definitely more concerns. There are not many positives to highlight. I'm trying to think of what I would highlight as a but I'm really struggling to find one. I'm very much focused on what funds we are identifying for expenses, reoccurring expenses that not only impact this budget, but future budgets. That's my main concern. And the other concern is the ordinances that City Council adopts should influence this budget. So if we have a commitment to Title VI and to adopting programs in our city that will address our anti-discrimination commitment, when I look in the budget and I see that work largely underneath the Human Resources Department, which is a brand-new department, and I see that that department is very overwhelmed, has had over 80% turnover rate for the last several years. It doesn't show me that the city is taking that issue seriously or is investing in that issue. When I get complaints and hear concerns from our disabilities coordinator, and I hear that decisions about disability issues are going through the Human Resources Department before they go to our #1 expert here in the city, and that actually has resulted in the city being sued last year for how we treat our police officers with disabilities, and losing that suit, and we're not addressing it. It brings me concern. There are many issues. Just as one of the speakers said earlier, this budget, a budget process shows you the priorities of a city. And we have major priorities to address that aren't being addressed by this budget, like the affordable housing. I have questions around violence intervention that have come up since our last discussion, since the last public forum on this issue. I have concerns when it comes to the traffic calming that I believe that we need to discuss as a city. I have lots of concerns about what's in this budget and what's not in this budget. And especially when it comes to affordable housing, I've heard from multiple people that we can do more. And I agree with them. I agree that when it comes to those at the lower end of income, we're not investing it, and we're not getting those assurances during the budgeting process that those commitments will be made, that over the last 4 years, or the last 4 budget cycles, 21, 22, 23, 24, that we're committing that $1.5 million to permanent supportive housing. And I was asked, when coming to this meeting, what amendments would I propose for the budget? And, I had to remind them that we have a process, including the language that's now in this ordinance, authorizing the administration to reappropriate non-project related encumbrances at the end of the fiscal year. We really have removed City Council from this process, any sort of oversight, any sort of involvement, any ability to amend or make changes. Because even if we make an amendment and we move money from one budget line to the other, they can just make up the difference at the end of the year. So we really need a better budgeting process.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a moment. I want to thank those who spoke as it relates to the budget. And just to be perfectly honest, I wish we could do it all. I wish we had unlimited funds where we could do it all and meet all of the needs of everything that we have going on in our city. Unfortunately, that's just not the case without exponentially raising taxes or finding dollars in other spaces. What I do want to say, the commitment to housing, I think we are moving in the right direction. I think that there are a lot of moving pieces. I also want to recognize a group here today who has been advocates and who have been, I want to say, watchdogs in a sense, and that's Justice Knox. And thank you all for being here. And Mayor, for your commitment because of this group. I think when you were campaigning, you made some commitments to this group that you have upheld to this point. Housing is a basic need. It is a right. And I think we as a city have to continue on this trajectory. I don't know if Mr. Bentley is here today or not, but if you could come to the podium and maybe, I know I'm catching you off guard, but if you could maybe give us an estimate of the affordable housing specifically from a Section 8 perspective that we have projected coming online in 2024, going into 2025.
Yeah, so Ben Bentley, KCDC, there are a couple of different sources of Section 8 housing. One is the voucher program. So I'm going to paint in broad strokes here. Vouchers, there's about 4,200 vouchers that serve Knox County at any given point, so we're funded through HUD for those. Those are predominantly individual property owners, so they're spread out throughout. Everybody's neighborhood in the room has probably some voucher families that live in the neighborhood. Second source, there's about 4,000 units of KCDC-owned Section 8 project-based rental assistance. So that's like First Creek at Austin, Western Heights, Lonsdale, all of the properties that you all are familiar with. There are also new project-based vouchers that are Section 8 contracts on properties. So some of them are the aforementioned. There's some of those units at Pond Gap. There's some of them at Young High Flats, Moss Grove. There are a couple of others. So Holston River Park, I may not be getting that name right, but the one right across from the park there, that is a Dominion deal that has project-based Section 8 vouchers in it. There's one right off of Merchant, kind of at Pleasant Ridge and Merchant. Grosvenor, I always mess up the name, but that's what that one's called. There's quite a few coming online that will have Section 8 project-based voucher contracts, which do serve extremely low-income families, so those are subsidized and the rent flows and moves with the income of the family. Does that make any sense, what I've just said?
It does. Is there any guesstimate on the number of units that are projected? I think the ones across from Holston River Park, is that either 80 to 90?
Yeah, so one of those developments is about, at the ballpark that you're saying is right, 80 to 90, the Merchant and the Holston, and I get those flip-flopped, and the other one I think is about 150. So about 250 total between those two developments. There's also, and this is anecdotal, I don't have a number in my head, Callahan Flats, which you all have supported, has some permanent supportive housing embedded with that, so there are project-based vouchers at that site. Caswell Manor, there are countless examples, but I think we can get a number of those Section 8 voucher contracts that are coming online to council if that would be helpful.
It would be.
Okay.
Definitely, thank you. And then also someone mentioned the joint workshop on housing and homelessness. I think that we have to keep that on the forefront. As far as looking at the day space where people do have an avenue to be able to go somewhere to get help and stay on that path to becoming housed within themselves. Also for the firefighters, I think that we're going to have to revisit that conversation at some point as well as it relates to even with the EMT status, those types of things. The gentleman, and I appreciate him having worked 72 hours and cut grass and then to be here just to speak to us today. That's a lot of commitment. And so I think that all of our men and women in uniform, we're just going to have to find those dollars at some point. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McKenzie. And just something that we spoke about in our employee rep meeting is the commitment that we have to continue to keep our pledge on the compensation studies, both comprehensive ones that are scheduled to happen in the near future, but also just ongoing market studies like we did when engineering was having a challenge with being way below market for some of their positions. So just wanted to thank council members who were able to make the time to meet with Boyce Evans and Kitron Smith to understand that our revenues are able to cover this budget and salary increases for the upcoming years. That's, we anticipate that to not be an issue. And also just wanted to say that thanks to Justice Knox and thanks to this council, we have committed to a minimum of $5 million a year towards affordable housing, a minimum. And every year, this city, with the support of this council, has exceeded that minimum, and this budget is no exception. This contains $8 million towards affordable housing, including over $3 million towards homeless prevention and emergency shelter and permanent supportive housing. So thank you. If everyone with Justice Knox could raise their hands just to thank you for your advocacy on this. I don't think we would have that commitment in writing, but for your support and persistence. And so thank you for continuing to show up and help be part of the solution. So I just wanted to mention that, and then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Ryder. Go ahead.
Okay. I was like, I thought you were going to mention something else.
No.
Okay. Well, I learned that I could have met with Kitron, and I only got Boyce, so I feel like I got shortchanged, but I enjoyed meeting with Boyce. So there you go. Just teasing you. A couple of other council members have mentioned it, so Justice Knox, I will also say thank you as well for the, I don't know if it was called a workshop or the joint housing. Summit. It was a summit. Thank you so much for working and making that happen. I felt like that was incredibly informative. It really could be boiled down to two key factors. What that lady came and talked about was low barrier shelter is a must, and a day shelter service is a must. I moved here from Indianapolis and actually volunteered in a day shelter there, and it's really part of it's a critical part of the services that have to happen to help people get employment, keep employment. I worked at a shift there where it was like 4 to 8 p.m. and it was people who were employed who needed to have showers and services and mail and access to computers, and that is at the end of their workday or before an evening shift or before they went to a camp or a shelter or a halfway house, and we're really lacking in that. And that speaker that you brought in was adamant that until we do those things, those are the secret, is low barrier shelter. And so I am incredibly sad, and I know that it is not the fault of the budget per se. It's a lack of service providers and someone willing to or able to meet the requirements of the funding and provide the service. But it is really critical that we bring back a low barrier shelter, however we do that. I felt like that was one step that we'd made in the right direction, and we were able to get that open right as COVID hit, and a few beds for spacing got lost in the mix, and it was able to stay open for several years. And so it's really important to me that we keep that at the forefront of our viewpoint, because we've got to get that back to be able to make progress on that. So thank you guys for continuing to work on that issue. The Mayor, you touched on compensation studies for employees and the ongoing efforts. So I don't know if it's you or Boyce or if Mr. Evans.
Dr. Drummond is here.
If Dr. Drummond is here, I cannot see. Is she here?
Yeah, she is here, our
Okay.
Director of HR. Dr. Drummond, could you come to the podium and let council know about the compensation studies that we've
Can you talk about the
committed to doing?
ongoing efforts? Like, we get questions from employees at budget time, and we have concerns from employees about different aspects. So what are the ongoing efforts, and when do the compensation studies happen, and when does it happen again? Can you give us better information about that?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Kelly Drummond with the Human Resource Department. Every year, once we had the initial compensation study, we are doing benchmarking annually But on the 5th year, we will do a full compensation study. So last year, department heads reached out and said their issues or concerns about specific positions, and we did a benchmarking study. In addition to that, we looked at police and what was going on with the police department. For the new year, we will look at KFD. There's some issues with compression, and so we've already spoken to the fire department, and we will look specifically at their pay and pay issues with compression. And then we will also open it up to general government as well.
So it's an ongoing thing. It's not, oh, it's been 7 years, it's time for.
No, ma'am. In the past, it was done that way, but you all, as city council, approved when we did the initial compensation study and we made the major pay changes. And with the step change was to look at this, and in ordinance, we must do it within 5 years. And throughout those 5 years, we are doing benchmarking. So we are looking at it annually. Yes, ma'am.
You're looking at neighboring comparable cities.
Yes, ma'am.
Within our region.
Yes, ma'am.
And then also, a comment was made about employees or post-compensation study, where in the range people were paid. After the compensation study, wasn't the goal to get people to midpoint, not necessarily the bottom of their range?
No, ma'am. When we look at the pay band, is what you're talking about, that grade, what we needed to look at was what was what was actually the mid-range for the pay. And we got everybody in all of those positions. If you remember a few years ago, we got all of those individuals to a basic range. Now, with the 2.5% that we are asking for, we move up the pay grade or that band by 1.5%. So what you will find is that individuals will no longer be always at the bottom. That's what you're talking about, where individuals will always be at the starting point of that. By doing 2.5%, everyone gets an increase, but the pay band increases by 1.5%. It assures that everyone moves up in the pay. But at the end of that 5-year study, we have looked at other positions, and we will continue to look if there are any positions that are significantly out of pay, and we will continue to do that. But at the end of the 5 years, we will do a whole comprehensive study, which includes all of those positions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My time is.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker?
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify with the affordable housing study, because I feel like we keep having these really unproductive conversations where it's like, no, we're doing great. No, we're not doing great. I'm saying I would like to be able to track what we're doing. And so when we approve a project, I want to be able to see, okay, in this budget year, FY24, we approved, let's say, $8 million in funding for affordable housing. That went to XYZ projects. It produced XYZ number of units of housing in this fiscal year. Now, that housing might not be built out and ready for 2 years, but we know in that year we put money towards 400 units of housing. And then the next year we can put money towards another 400 units of housing. But when we get a snapshot that goes all the way back to 2019, it doesn't help me gauge whether we are following the policy that we have in place. When I tried to look at what projects have come before City Council, not including Austin Homes and Transforming Western, I only counted around 594 units of affordable housing. But even within that, it's hard for me to go in and break down which units are for 30% income and below, which units are for 60% income and below, which units are 100% AMI. That's what we need to be able to see in order to see if the ordinance that we adopted is being followed. It would also help us understand where are some gaps, because we continue to hear from people, especially in, those making under $30,000 a year, that they can't find housing. They're losing housing and they can't find housing. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think when I looked up HUD pricing for one bedroom of someone making, under 20,000, it was more around 600 a month for 2023. And I am not seeing any projects come before us that are allowing rent at that price point. I keep seeing projects come before us that are at 800, 1,000, 1,200 per month, and that's supposed to be an affordable rate. I would like to know more about the work being done to identify units of housing for these different income levels so that we can make sure those investments are being made the way that we approve through an ordinance. That would be a huge improvement, in my opinion, for me to be able to say to the public what we are doing, how we're doing it, and just, that we are addressing the affordable housing crisis. Right now, it does feel like more units are coming in on that higher end, and there's even discussion in this packet about competition over inventory, which just doesn't line up with my thinking. Those who are making $15,000 and less are not really competing with those making $80,000 and more. They have different needs, they have different, they're looking for different things. The folks making over $80,000 above, if the housing can't meet a certain standard, those are folks who are more likely to leave or have a longer commute, but they have more options. The folks at the lower end have fewer options. And so that's why I continue to try to stress that that's where our priority has to be. Also, because those at the higher end, even though the inventory might not be there now, that's a price point that the market can address. The lower end will not be addressed by the market. So that, in my opinion, continues to be where we have to focus our funding. I would love to get an updated report that gave us a better understanding of when the projects were approved, what was approved, at what income level, so that we know each year how many units of housing and for who we are approving.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. I know there's a lot of investments going on in the city and that we hope to move forward with more investments in housing tonight. And I do want to, again, thank council members who have made the time to speak to our finance team, to speak to our Housing and Neighborhood Development Director. Our staff is available to help walk you through these issues so you can understand it as fully as you have time to do. But I do want to just say that we are committed to increasing the supply of housing at all price points, but particularly for our most needy people, unsheltered homeless people, people with very, very low incomes. And this council is investing $26.2 million at Transforming Western to complement a $40 million HUD grant. So a HUD, $40 million, that's pretty good. The city's putting in 26.2, and that is also complementing other sources of private investment to the tune of over $200 million. So we have metrics that Director DuBose can give a summary of in just a minute, but just so we have quantitative metrics that are open to the public and of course to council, and we hope to continue to improve the accessibility of those dashboards. However, it's also important to have that qualitative information, and I had the opportunity to go spend several hours walking around and talking to the people who live in Western Heights and those who've had the opportunity to move from the homes that are going to be raised and replaced with new housing and more units of top quality housing. They're already moved to the refurbished housing, and the homes look beautiful. And the people who have moved in feel, literally, they said, I feel like a rich person. I feel like the transformation's happening. It's the infrastructure, it's the housing, it's the high-quality transformation of that community, and we're just in the beginning phases of that. So, Mr. DuBose, Director DuBose, could you share with council some more of the metrics that you and your team are putting together, how we can make sure that we're directing our investments towards those who need the most help?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Kevin DuBose, Housing and Neighborhood Development Department. I want to make sure that I point out that there were two documents released 90 days of each other. One is our annual affordable housing report. This one is required by our affordable housing ordinance, and it gives a detailed report on that year's activity. And I'll just mention briefly, the last report highlighted the projects that were funded in that year. Central Terrace, which was 112 units and 28 accessible units. Callahan Flats, 32 and 3 bedroom multifamily units, in addition to the permanent supportive housing, 80 units. 5 Points Infill, which were larger units, scattered site, and 5 Points, which are 10 units. It also, gives a cumulative report on how we're doing. We've invested $26.9 million in 3 budget years prior to this one in the Affordable Housing Fund, which, as the mayor mentioned, is far ahead of our schedule. It was also mentioned that our permanent supportive housing budget number of $1.1 million this year is different than the $1.5 million commitment, and there's a reason for that. We spent more in 2022. We committed $2.9 million for permanent supportive housing to contribute to Callahan Flats. And the 1.1 is just the amount needed to keep us on pace. So we are on pace with our commitment there. And I also will point out, we're very proud of our record, the shocking numbers of $40 million, 26.9 coming from the Affordable Housing Fund, $40 million invested in the last 5 years, and over 2,000 units is the numbers that we've been using. We've also been saying that we've leveraged over $600 million. Now, if you take the projects that were approved by the last council and subtract them from the report that you're reading from, that number is still true, because the numbers were much higher than we've been discussing. This report here, the Affordable Housing report, which I should mention, the official name is the Attainable Resilient Knoxville Report, has a comprehensive picture of what we're doing from an affordable housing and attainable housing perspective. And I'm a planner, so how I do this is I look back 5 years and ahead 15. All right, so the 2019 numbers were going back to explain our progress. And I will report that the 10-year period between 2011 and 2021, 2022, we averaged about 800 units a year. Last year, we were at 1,600. Year before that, we were at 1,344. So our trajectory in terms of our housing production is headed to doubling our 10-year pace. So we're adding lots and lots of housing.
Thank you, Mr. DuBose. Councilmember Parker?
This report that you're referring to, has it been shared with council?
Yes, I put a copy in everyone's hand.
I don't believe I have one. If you could resend it to me, that would be.
Before council, and then also it's published on our website.
Could you get me another copy? I do not have it.
Yes, sure will.
And Mr. DeBose, maybe just resend the link to where
Yeah.
it's on the website, anyone in the public can see it. And also, council members, if you want Mr. DeBose to go over it with you in detail, he's available to do that. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-1. All right.
9B is an ordinance to levy a tax on all taxable properties, real, personal, and mixed, within the corporate limits of the city of Knoxville to provide sufficient revenues to fund the general fund and debt service fund operations and debt service obligations of the city of Knoxville for the fiscal period beginning July 1st, 2024, and ending June 30th, 2025.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members, we have 3 people signed up to speak in favor of this. First is Detective Jason Booker.
Jason Booker, 1615 Huron. Thank you for letting me speak on this matter again. And I talked about some of our low numbers when I was up here a second ago. So if you look at the 69 officers, we're short now, so that equals out to about 10 patrol squads. That actually has a trickle-down or a trickle-up effect, either way you want to look at it. Because with these low numbers, that literally affects everything that KPD does. It affects our patrol functions. It affects the folks that call in and would like to report nonviolent crimes over the phone. It affects SRO staffing at schools within the city. It even affects the detectives working homicide investigation. In order to continue to address our issues with violent crimes, we must work towards repairing the recruitment and retention problems in law enforcement. This is not something that's special or that's just landed in the city of Knoxville. This is industry-wide. And so, you know, this affects law enforcement agencies all over the country of various sizes. I know each of you recognizes the tremendous responsibility that KPD has in dealing with crime in the city and keeping our citizens and visitors safe. With you guys meeting these issues of staffing head-on, we as a city can continue to ensure Knoxville is a great place to live, work, visit, and raise a family. By passing these measures associated with the proposed budget, you can fix the problems that have been years in the making. And you guys didn't have anything to do with these problems where we're at now. But you can take a step and fix them. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak to item 9B is Zoe Scott. Ms. Scott?
Zoe Scott, Bike Walk Knoxville. In the interest of respecting council's time and not repeating myself too many times, I'll just say that this is an important measure to set the tax rate necessary to fund the proposed operating budget that this body just passed. And in support of this budget, we also encourage you to support this ordinance as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And the third and final person signed up to speak in favor of item 9B is Reverend John Mark Wiggers.
Good evening, I'm John Mark Wiggers. I live at 3704 Garden Drive in Fountain City, and I serve as a priest at St. James Episcopal Church in the 1-7. And so I come tonight representing Justice Knox, who's been mentioned. Thank you. We consider the Affordable Housing Trust Fund one of our 5-year overnight successes in achieving, as we were advocating for that for a few years. And we thank you that there was a response to that and for the continued work with that. And so we want to speak in favor of positively funding those efforts. In particular, we applaud the continued funding for affordable housing. We support naming and implementing reliable and consistent funding sources. And this crisis of affordable housing has come up again and again in the House meetings that our organization holds every year as people report to us the difficulty they have, their families have, of finding affordable and safe places to live. And Justice Knox, as you know, has studied the efforts of other cities, and we found that initiatives like this Affordable Housing Trust Fund have a positive impact in providing affordable housing for members of our city. And those funds can't just be applied in the short term. To be effective, they must be in place for the long haul so that people like firefighters and law enforcement officers, teachers, nurses, retail workers, some pastors, city employees, to name a few, can also afford to live in the city where they serve. In Justice Knox, we support these ordinances that will fund affordable housing initiatives. And we also understand that this funding, as it's been mentioned, is going toward efforts to address homelessness in our community. We asked for that summit, and we were glad that the mayors came together to host that summit, that joint summit. We were proud to bring Julie Orlando, who was mentioned earlier, who comes from Bergen County, New Jersey, where they've had great success, as some of the issues were mentioned by our vice mayor, of the things that are needed to make that successful. And we know it's not a cookie cutter, but there's a recipe, and there are certain ingredients that need to be in there to make those efforts successful. At our last annual assembly that we had, where we had nearly 1,200 of our members of the over 20 congregations that we represent who were there, Mayor Kincannon was there, and we asked her and Mayor Jacobs and Aaron Reed to continue to consult with Ms. Orlando from Bergen County, New Jersey, to lean on those resources of those folks who have done successful work, to learn from them what it takes to do this. So we definitely support funding those efforts to help house our neighbors. We appreciate that there is data forthcoming, and we'll continue to ask for data along those points of who's being served, because we realize that safe, affordable housing is better for all of our citizens, as it creates better health. It helps our students get better education. It keeps us safe. It supports our businesses. At our summit, it was great not only to see service providers who help the homeless, but there were businesses there realizing that they were seeing needs and how this impacts their business and the work they do. We realize that this is a comprehensive need to address this. And we were excited to see that there have been efforts to draw in private funding, and we know that that takes hard work of the city staff to go and educate folks about that. And we stand ready to continue to educate our congregations, nearly 10,000 members across our 20-plus congregations, to educate them that things like permanent supportive housing actually work, and it can work in their neighborhood, in our neighborhoods where we live, and that these efforts to provide affordable housing work to make our city safer and a great place to live for all of us. So thank you for recognizing Justice Knox and our work, and we'll continue to be here to advocate for these things, and we support this budget before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, that concludes the people signed up to speak on item 9B. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two comments I wanted to make following up on the public speakers and some of the comments made earlier. We have folks working to serve individuals experiencing homelessness all around our city. And many of them come together monthly as a part of the Homeless Coalition to identify priorities in the community for this population. These are the folks that I look to for answers on lots of things. And I would hope that those who are also organizing on this issue would look to that community for answers and guidance and support on this issue. Because we have to recognize when we have political power, but we're not necessarily those closest to the issue. And that's what I'm starting to see, this dynamic here. What I'm seeing are people struggling all around the city to serve this very vulnerable population, and they all need resources. They're all points of contact for people. They're all, for some, the closest point of safety that they could get to. I'm worried about this discussion I'm hearing about this centralized location. And I hope that there's more discussion before those with political power move full steam ahead with an idea because they have the political power. That's what I hope. I hope our community will collaborate and will work with those most close to the issue on what the needs are. It also really throws me off when we have a discussion about the shortage in KPD when it seems we have at least a dozen officers here tonight, maybe 15. I haven't counted everyone. If I go out into the hallway, I see another handful. How, with our shortages, do y'all have the ability to send so many officers? And it's not just this meeting. The last meeting, we had a lot of officers, too. To me, that makes it difficult to argue, because based on what you said, we got 2 squads in the building tonight. And I don't even know why. I'm sure there are other departments who would love to show up and advocate for pay increases and additional funding for their department. But I wonder if they have the capacity to send people. So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. Let's, make sure, those of us committed to justice, that we are centering the voices of those who are closest to the issue, and that we're not using our political power for a win. That's all.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Okay. Next item, please.
9C is an ordinance of the Council of the City of Knoxville to amend Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 2, Sections 2-449, 2-450, 2-458, and 2-459 of the Knoxville City Code to adjust the classification and compensation plans.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Council members Detective Booker and Zoe Scott have signed up to speak on this item. If you want to, Mr. Booker, come to the podium, and Ms. Scott, you may too. If you don't have to, if you've said what you need to.
I appreciate the time, and I'll be quick. This will be the last time you guys hear from me tonight. As of today, these numbers are very fresh, and so they are accurate. We have 13 officers on the drop plan, which means they have established their retirement date, and they have made a clear decision to retire within the next few years. We currently have 51 officers that are eligible to retire today and not come back tomorrow. They could just call in and say, I'm done. They've reached that point. I'm one of them. Not that I'm not going to call in, but I'm one of the guys that's reached that date. 11 more officers will be eligible to retire in December, and 26 more can retire within 3 years. Taking all those into account, KPD could lose over 100 officers within the next 3 years. To put it into perspective, the exit numbers versus our incoming numbers, we currently have 7 recruits in the academy that will graduate in July. After that, they face another more than 4 months in training in the FTO program. Then we have another 13 recruits that will graduate in November. And after they graduate, they face another 4 months in the FTO program. Although recruitment is a major issue, focus should probably be given at this point on the retention of senior officers and the detectives who possess decades of experience and institutional knowledge. Adjusting the pay plans and current classifications will be a great step in addressing retention and will assist in attracting quality applicants to our city. I want to thank you guys, okay? Nothing about this is easy. I know sometimes these things are not a very popular political decision that you have to make, but I appreciate your time and effort in this. If you guys need me for anything, you can get a hold of me. I'll be happy to talk to you about the ins and outs of the police department or any of these issues that I've talked to tonight. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Scott? No, okay. Council members, that concludes people who have signed up to speak to item 9C. Council member Ryder.
Yeah, I just wanted clarification on a comment. I know right now we're voting on changes to compensation and classification, and the preceding agenda items were about the tax rate and the budget. And this is, I think, my 7th budget, maybe. I get one more, unless something happens to me. So in all of my experience being here, I'm pretty familiar with seeing a lot of city employees and uniformed employees who come to the budget because, it's your job. It revolves around your job. So I'm curious, are there, and one thing was made about counting police officers and numbers of them here. Deputy Chief Powell, aren't many of these folks here on their own time? They're not all on duty?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay, because it's hard to differentiate because there are other employees here that are also not during their work hours. They're here on their off time, and they don't get compensated leave or anything for the time they come to these meetings. It's just their choice to come here and be part of these proceedings.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct, their own
Okay,
time.
not just KPD, but other departments as well that work for the city. I'm assuming, I know there's some other, Mr. Hinkle, I believe you said you're off duty, is that correct? Okay, so I don't like the idea of making assumptions as to who's here on the clock and off the clock. And so just for the public that's watching and for the public that's here, people are here off the clock because they're, concerned about their jobs. And I just think that that's a fair thing to correct.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you. I would love more clarification then. We have multiple officers in the back. I think they're all working. I would love to know how many officers here who are working and how many here are on their own time.
Councilmember Parker,
If we're going to clarify, let's clarify.
Yeah, as you know, we have had some recent council meetings where I and other council members and we needed some extra security. And so just like when the community calls 911 and they need help from police or fire, they show up. Even if they're short-staffed, they find a way to get here. So in recent weeks, we have had extra police here at some of our council meetings. Some are here on their own time. Some are here to help make sure everybody here feels safe. I'm not going to ask them to differentiate that at the moment, okay?
Well, then let me finish my comment because my point is that we do have multiple, I don't know how many I counted earlier back in the hallway. It was about 9 uniformed officers who have been showing up regularly. I called today to see who had signed up to speak at public forum. Once I heard the names, I knew there would be no protest tonight. So I don't understand why we can't plan and understand that we don't have to show up, have KPD show up in full force, even when there's no protest being planned.
Ms. Parker, maybe you can let us know since you seem to
You
know.
can call and get the list of public forum speakers just like I did. That's easy enough to do. It seems like a waste of their time and a waste of city tax dollars to have so many officers here every week while we're hearing about the extreme shortages. It seems that they have more important things to do. It's unfortunate that folks have felt unsafe when we've had really young protesters showing up in flip-flops to talk about what they're not happy about. That could be something for us to address ourselves so that we don't waste city tax dollars having a room full of police officers when it's not needed. Now, if y'all wanted to clarify who's in the room, let's clarify who's in the room. I don't know why y'all getting aggravated now. If folks are here to keep us safe, that's a conversation to have because it's at a level that we hadn't seen prior. And that costs money. And we're talking about money for staff. And my complaint is, I think it's a very valid complaint, that we have numerous paid, on-duty police officers at our meetings while we are considering the shortage. And that, to me, does not make that a convincing argument when they can easily bring a squad to our meetings when it's not even needed. That's my point. Now, asking if there are some people here off duty does not negate my point. That's my point.
Are you done?
Possibly.
Okay. Well, I'll turn it over to Councilmember McKenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to interject in the conversation that, yes, we have seen an increase in officers for the last, gosh, maybe month or so. We know that tensions are running high, and rightfully so, on a lot of the issues that we're hearing about. People are coming to the meetings. People do have a right to public protest, and I don't think that the increased security was specifically around those folks who were signed up to speak, but just even on the aspect of public safety. I do know that we did have a meeting, and you can't not predict the numbers of who is going to show up in peaceful protest or if the protest will turn at any given time, because these are very, very passionate and very personal issues that people are, are here to protest and to express themselves about, whether they speak at the podium or just in the audience or outside the building. So in my opinion, I see that as public safety, not necessarily for council and staff, but for the general public who attend here. And to be perfectly honest, yeah, there was someone who said something threatening as I was walking out of this room probably about a month or so ago. I would prefer not to take that into my own hands, but to allow law enforcement to deal with that, because if I take it in my own hands, law enforcement will probably get involved, and I'm not trying to be on that end of law enforcement if someone is threatening toward me and doing something to my property or my family, because I think that we all have that, I think, level of respect that people do have a right to protest, but we also know that it can, when people are passionate, it can become volatile very quickly. And I see the increased security as a matter of public safety, not necessarily for council safety. And that's just my viewpoint. That could be totally different, but that's how I view it. And just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember McKenzie. Councilmember Ryder.
Yeah. So we can't always predict people's behaviors when they're upset and when they're heated. And I'm going to really reel myself in here. I would love to tell the whole story. So if I'm pushed to, I will. I do think it's a waste of resources to have that many officers here. But unfortunately, things have happened at different times, not just in the last few months, not just associated with people protesting about a war that we all think is awful, but we just don't agree with the resolutions that got brought forward, which is not germane to this topic. But there was one time when someone waited for me at the back of the dais back here to accost me and stalk me to my car. Okay, that must have been why they were in my face yelling at me the whole time. And I said, if you push me, I'll go the whole story. I'll go the whole story. Because the PBA video of you orchestrating it and watching, girl, I got
Councilmember Ryder,
clips. I got clips.
Let's focus on the class comp.
The issue
vote.
at hand is I appreciate having KPD to watch people's back, because that night there was no one from KPD back there, and Councilwoman Testerman was the one who stood up and watched out for me. And anybody that wants to see the clips from the PBA videos of what happened is welcome to them. So people should behave themselves even when you don't like what you hear.
Vice Mayor Smith.
I'm glad all y'all are here. I'd like to vote on the compensation plans, if we can.
Okay, seeing no further questions or comments, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-1. Next item.
9D is an ordinance to amend the Knoxville City Code, Appendix B, Zoning Code, Article 9.2, Use Matrix, Table 9-1, and add residential care facilities as a special use in the OP zoning district, Knoxville, Knox County Planning applicant.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9E is an ordinance approving the request of Randy Guinard for an amendment to the Northeast County Sector Plan from public parks and refuges to medium-density residential for a property located at 1707 Loves Creek Road, Council District 4.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember McKenzie.
My apologies.
Oh, you don't have, Councilmember Parker.
Yes, on first reading, I requested an update on road plans for Loves Creek and Millertown.
Director Claybo, you have some updates for Ms. Parker?
Sure, Tom Claybo, Engineering Director. We have designed improvements to Millertown Pike, purchased some right-of-way, and we are currently looking for funding for construction. This year, I think the priority for that project went down because of Amazon's lack of moving in their new facility. So it's a project that's on the books, it's shovel-ready, so at the right time, it'll be ready to go.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9F is an ordinance approving the request of Randy Guinard for a one-year plan amendment from low-density residential to medium-density residential for property located at 1707 Loves Creek Road, 4th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9G is an ordinance approving the request of Dream House Construction LLC for an amendment to the Northwest City Sector Plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential for property located at 0 Henson Road, leaving any special purpose land use classifications unchanged, 3rd District.
I would like to move to consider G, H, and I together.
Okay, motion made to consolidate into one item, items G, H, and I, or to vote at one time on all three items. That's been made and seconded. Does everyone understand this motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion to consolidate carries. Is there a motion on the consolidated items?
Move to approve.
Okay, motions have been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
9J is an ordinance approving the request of Gary Kuntz for an amendment to the North City Sector Plan from low-density residential to general commercial for property located at 5531 North Broadway, leaving any special purpose land use classifications unchanged, 4th District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion?
Mayor, I'd just like to make a motion to consolidate items J, K, and L.
Okay, motion's been, I guess a substitute motion's been made to consolidate J, K, and L. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consolidation motion carries. Is there a motion on the consolidated motion?
Move
Okay,
to
move to
approve.
approve the consolidated. It's been made and seconded. Any questions on the consolidated items? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9M is an ordinance approving the request of John Lynch Sanders, FAIA, for an amendment to the Central City Sector Plan from medium-density residential to neighborhood commercial for a portion of property located at 1221 Laurel Avenue, 1st
Mayor?
District.
I'd like to make a motion to consolidate items M, N, and O.
Okay. Is there a second to the, okay, motion to consolidate has been made on items M and O. It's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussions? See, Councilmember Ryder, is that a question? No.
No.
Seeing no questions on the motion to consolidate, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to consolidate carries. Is there a motion on the consolidated M, N, and O? Motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
12P is an ordinance approving the request of Connolly Development Ventures LLC for an amendment to the South City Sector Plan from low-density residential to neighborhood commercial for property located at 2600 Sevier Avenue, 1st District.
Mayor, I'd also like to make a motion to consolidate items P, Q, and R.
Okay, motion to consolidate items P, Q, and R has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consolidation motion carries. Is there a motion on the consolidated items? Okay, motion made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9S is an ordinance to change the base zoning classification for property located at 4407 and 4411 Joe Louis Road, and for portions of property located at 4415 Joe Louis Road and 1410 Lewis Avenue from IG District to RN2 District. Alexis Feliciano, applicant, First District.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
9T is an ordinance approving the request of Reverend Harold Middlebrook for an amendment to the East City Sector Plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential office for a portion of property located at 1117 Beeman Lake Road, 6th District.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to consolidate T, U, and V.
Okay, motion has been made to consolidate items T, U, and V. It's been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of this consolidation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to consolidate carries. Is there a motion on the three items?
Motion to approve.
Motion's been made to approve and seconded. Council members, there are three people here signed up to speak in favor of T, U, and V. Reverend Middlebrook, Alvin Nance, and Christopher Snow. Please, Reverend Middlebrook, if you could come to the podium. You'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Harold Middlebrook, 2334 Dandridge Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee. Thank you. All I have to say is I'd like those who come to both of these sessions in support of this effort to please stand so that you would know that there are people who are supporting this effort. We say thank you for your support at this juncture.
Thank you. Does Mr. Nance wish to speak? No? Okay. Mr. Snow, does he wish to speak? Okay. They're available if council members have questions. Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. Since our last meeting, I drove over to the area just to spend a little bit more time there. Realized that I had confused Yellowstone with Beeman Lake, but very similar roads either way. And I wanted to speak to my comment that I made at our last meeting because it caught the attention of some folks. When I said that I regretted my vote on this issue, I wanted to explain it. And please feel free to sit down. You don't have to worry about it. I'm planning to support this again tonight. Just wanted to explain why I made that statement. And the reason I made that statement is that changing a property from single-family residential to RN5 has been a debated issue on this council. And it really concerned me that there was very little discussion of this property changing to RN5. It was nothing compared to other properties that we've discussed getting such a change. And when we moved on to the next issue, which was West Hills, the language for me was almost intolerable about wanting to support the neighborhood's efforts to maintain the integrity of the neighborhood when we were just talking about a duplex. And none of that came up when we had community members here from Beeman Lake who were worried about their neighborhood going from single family to RN5, not just a duplex, but RN5. And we had no one here advocating for that neighborhood. And that's what bothered me. I still am pushing for the city to evaluate the area to see what support could be given. I'm trying to think about my own criteria that I'll use moving forward for these types of decisions. Should an RM5 only be on a road, you know, with lines on it? Like if it's essentially a one-lane road with no lines on it, should we put that much density on it? We need some sort of criteria. And I've also been talking with planning staff because we got this North Shore debacle coming our way. And my question in that situation, it's a area of town that's more well-to-do, and so they have a road study going on out there that they can reference. But we don't have those types of studies to look at in this area of town. And so trying to get a better understanding of when planning staff, not commission, but planning staff recommend one development but not another, I'm trying to get an understanding of what their criteria is. Do they go out to the street? Do they do a count of the cars? Or is it just based on what that definition of the street is? So it's something that I have to think through for myself in terms of my own criteria and these decisions. But I do support this development with the city making a commitment to infrastructure needs in that area. But we've got to, I just challenge us as a body to give the same care to every neighborhood, not just the ones that have, a lot of political power and they can show up and make us sweat, but also the ones who they love and they care about their community. They don't have, the lawyers and the architects and the folks who can show up who are a part of the community to argue against certain things, and that will just not so easily put an RM5 in a single-family neighborhood simply because it's not West Hills or Sequoia Hills or one of the hills. That's all.
Okay, seeing no further lights on, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item, please.
11A is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Beck Cultural Exchange Center to provide historical preservation, research, education, and programming reflecting Black and African American experiences and culture in the Knoxville area in an amount not to exceed $90,000 with the option to extend the terms of the agreement for up to 3 additional one-year periods under the same conditions.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion.
I'm on the list to speak for that one.
11A. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Daniel Smith is here to speak on this item. My apologies. Mr. Smith, if you could state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Do you want the physical address or zip code?
Whatever you prefer. I actually know where you live.
I know where you live too.
Yes,
ma'am.
I know.
I
He's
ain't
my
afraid.
neighbor.
I'm
I didn't mean
Daniel
that in a
Smith.
menacing way.
My nickname is Dan. I live at Knoxville High Apartments. And just to take the edge off things, not on this subject, I'm happy to say I've been a volunteer chaplain with the Knoxville Police Department for 24 years, and the chaplains are not in your budget. Okay, on the $90,000, I have 2 questions. Is council aware of the ratio of the $90,000 to the total budget of the Beck Center? And does the 3-year option mean that Beck Center gets the $90,000 for 3 more years without it having to come to City Council? And by the way, I'm a fan of the Beck Center. I've been going there since Bob Booker, rest in peace, was the director. And it is a fascinating place, and you really can't see it in just a couple of hours. I guess I'll stand here and wait to see what the answer to my question
Mr. Smith, we appreciate your comments, and then council can discuss that, and we can answer those questions during the course of their discussion.
Okay, so I can sit down?
Yes.
Thank you.
Council members, and I think Reverend Kessler is here if you have questions also. But just as a point of information, the city, have been supporting the Beck Center for many years, and it has often in the past been done through a community agency grant. But similar to the way we do with some other entities who do services for us that are just so essential to the city and to our community. We worked with them to do this on a contractual basis rather than asking them to apply for the grant each year. So that is the change, but the amount of money in our pledge of support is the same. And I just want to say the Beck Center's been an amazing contributor to so many elements of our history, and including just helping us understand the past, more recent past of urban renewal, and the impact that it's had, the negative impact it's had on our community. So that's just a little background on this. Councilmember McKenzie?
Thank you, Mayor. The gentleman asked, would this grant come back before us every year? Is
Yes.
that a yes, it would or would not?
The contract, Mr. Brace,
No,
maybe.
this agreement would be
Three-year contract.
dependent upon funding being approved in the budget, but the agreement, as long as the funding was there, would be renewed every year, and it wouldn't have to come back every single year to city council.
Okay, that's what I thought, because we have the word contract there, and I don't think it would be any different from any other agency that we would contract with. So I just wanted that point of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11B is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents to award a total amount not to exceed $247,855 in Historic Preservation Program grant funds to support property improvements to eligible historic properties within the city of Knoxville.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Vice Mayor Smith?
Yeah, I think this is either replacement or using funds that were historically for a facade grant program. Can you talk about how these funds are used differently or how the city plans to
Director DeBose?
adapt its use of these funds for those situations?
Yes. Historically, there are two programs. One is the facade, and the other is affectionately known as HPP. Historic preservation is the goal for the second one. Different criteria. The facade is limited at $50,000. The historic preservation, there is not a limit because it was created to solve the problem of demolition by neglect of historic homes, culturally significant properties within urban neighborhoods. And so we've, over the years, been able to help preserve those. What you have today before you is the HPP, which is going to change in the future. But right now, as it is, we have these two requests for funding that we're recommending approval for.
And how will it change in the future?
Well, we'll be working with Urban Design and Development on a new process similar to the public-private partnership, which will get more eyes on it and more collaboration between the departments.
Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11C is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement with Knoxville's Community Development Corporation for Phase 2 infrastructure improvements at Western Heights in an amount not to exceed $4,200,000.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded, just as council's familiar with this because this is our third of 5 installments, our ongoing commitment to transforming Western. In all, the city has committed $26.2 million to provide the infrastructure needed to revitalize and modernize this area that will be home to more than 400 families. And I already mentioned the fact that the families who are already living in the revitalized parts of the neighborhood, the transformation's real, and they're excited to see what's going to happen in the future, including, our destination park that's going to be there, Knoxville Fine Arts and Crafts Center, and also the Head Start, which is already a brand-new building and serving children as we speak. So really appreciate KCDC's work here, and obviously the city and KCDC working very closely, hand in hand. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
11D is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept a grant award from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant Award of $44,000 over a 2-year period with a required 50% match for a total amount of $88,000 to provide funding for the purchase of bullet-resistant vests for the Knoxville law enforcement officers.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11E is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all documents necessary to accept a school violence prevention program grant from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services in an amount not to exceed $375,000 with a required 25% local match not to exceed $125,000 for a total grant amount of $500,000 to be used for equipment, supplies, travel, and training for school violence prevention in Knox County schools.
Move to approve.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Rick Roach has signed up to speak in opposition to this item. Mr. Roach? You have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. Almost forgot me. $500,000, I guess, SRO program. With the multitude of school safety issues that have popped up over the last several years, which have highlighted the need for further clarification about the relationship between Knox County schools, Sheriff's Department, Police Department. And I think I saw on this resolution that schools are listed, the school department is listed as a sub-recipient. And I think it's kind of gone back and forth on previous requests, I think. But that being said, a Department of Justice grant for this city to be applied within the city limits of Knoxville for training for SROs. We need to know what we're getting for the money. And I don't care where the money's coming from. I really don't. But we need to know what we're getting for the money. Why? Well, we know the recent history of some schools in Knoxville, a lot of schools in Knoxville. And in particular, I'm going to reference the death of Anthony Thompson Jr. at Austin East. And what training was going on before that? So that we had a clear knowledge and an understanding of what the relationship is between KPD, the SRO position within the schools, Knox County school system, what the protocols are, so that there would be this ability to avoid having young people killed in a school bathroom. And, you know, at the end of the day, if you're not going to have accountability, if you're going to do this, if we're going to have armed people enforcing within and coming to get children in school, yes, he had a gun. I'll just get that out the way, y'all. That's what always pops up in people. He shouldn't have had a gun. Okay? But there are other needs that could have been, you could have put resources toward if you, because repeatedly what I've heard is that the city of Knoxville is no longer in the school business. And actually, this grant points that out. You're not in the school business, okay? You're in the enforcement business for schools. So the mindset says, you know, at the end of the day, let's come and get them. If we think they're messing up, let's come and get them and take them away. Or let's lock them down. But let's not educate them for sure. And that's the community. Listen, we had multiple children from Austin East killed in the community, literally all over Knoxville. Some of them died over in South Knoxville, but they were students at Austin East. Yet, we screamed and hollered for more security at our schools. And we got just the opposite, literally. And the way it was handled, I want there to be some protocols in place that says, you know what, and the city of Knoxville in combination, okay, you're not in the school business, but you can do by obligating and prioritizing funding for, send some money over to the county school system to have counselors or support or partner, just like you're doing now on this, with the federal government, Department of Education, maybe to supply counselors, psychologists, that type of thing. Never done that before, have you? Okay, so think about that. Think about your mindset and what you were mentioning about communities from before. Keep that in mind, okay? It doesn't matter what you learn if you don't do anything about it.
Any other questions or comments on item 11E? Ms. Parker?
Well, I'll just add to that comment that I think what our public speaker said in many ways is right, in that this funding has become available and it has created a program that we continue because the funding is available. But we don't necessarily stop to assess whether we need to make changes and whether we need to invest in, as a city, not just as a school system, but as a city, and community-based mental health workers, school-based mental health workers, and move away from the law enforcement that we've traditionally provided. I wonder, Mayor, if you don't mind me asking, at one point you had considered removing SROs from the city schools. Is there, with making that decision, was there consideration of other ways that we could support the school through counselors or other positions other than, school resource officers?
Well, as your colleague, Mr. Roberto, mentioned earlier this meeting, we pass along something along the lines of $172 million of our sales tax collections to Knox County Schools, which is something like $50 million more than what's required by state law. And we welcome them to use that towards things like counselors. We don't, after serving for 10 years on the school board, I'm well aware that the school board is the governing authority over Knox County Schools, and we need to work with them, but it's ultimately their decision on how to spend the monies that come to their budget.
And
Projected to be 176 million, a little over that, ma'am.
Thank you, 176 million.
Is there anyone in the city who would proactively look for funding for other programs, or is that not something that we are doing as a city when it comes to the schools?
If the school system has identified an entity, that would, from, say, the federal government, that would be willing to grant funds for counselors, we'd be happy to partner with them, but I'm sure to the extent that that's happening, they would use the Knox County Health Department to do that. The reason this grant goes through us is because it's from the Department of Justice, and we don't have the health department. That's a county function.
Okay, I'm curious about our role in the equation, and it does feel funder-driven, right? Because it's money through the Department of Justice, that brings the city of Knoxville into it. If this were a health department grant, it would not bring the city into it. And I think it's okay, I think it's reasonable for a community to question kind of funder-driven initiatives. I plan on supporting this tonight because it's the same grant as always. I did have a question about it, though. There's language within this grant, or within the resolution, actually, and I wasn't sure if this appeared in previous resolutions, that authorized changes to be made to the grant throughout this process. Is that the typical language that's been attached to this grant in the past?
Assistant Chief Powell, do you know the answer to that question? Off the top of your head, if not, we can supply it.
I do not. I'll have to go back and gather that information and see.
Yeah, that's the only thing that stood out to me is in the resolution, there's language that states, that no, this is for the best. This is F. No, we're on E. Let me point out that language. So it's a required local match of $125,000 for a total grant of $500,000, or in such other amounts or on such other terms as may be advantageous to the city of Knoxville to expand and improve security at schools.
Councilmember Parker, we will ask KPD to get back to you with that. They don't have that comparison with you right now. And since your 5 minutes is up, I'm going to go to Ms. Ryder, and then we can come back to you.
If I could just clarify, so my question is, would this language allow the match of $120,000 to be higher? And you can answer
Chief
me
Powell,
later.
If you know that off the top of your head, if you're not sure, then we can just wait. We don't want to.
Yeah, I would need to confer with grants and see why there's a difference in the language.
Or if there's a difference, yeah.
Or if there is.
Yeah, we'll confirm. I mean, this is a grant that has come before this council every year since I've been mayor, and probably many years before that. I don't think there are any differences, substantive differences this time, but we'll confirm and get back to you. Councilmember Ryder.
Yeah, so my question was also about clarification, because a lot of times when we get these grant applications, they contain little information about what actually happens with the money, because it kind of passes through. Because specifically, I think Councilwoman Parker said it, the agenda item, the AIS, just says used for equipment, supplies, travel, and training for school violence prevention, but not a lot of details about that. When I looked to Google for more information, Knox News, there was a 2018 article, and it shows examples of cameras bought for outside the doors of schools, like they show a camera system installed at the West High School door, and it talks about training to prevent violence among students against other violence, or violence from students to other students. So I guess if someone could just follow up with us and be like, where has it gone in the past? Because it's a very common grant that we've done multiple times. It's not actually paying for labor or personnel, it appears. It's paying for like the old article discusses coordination, so like, I guess, radio systems or early alert, described one as early alert. So just what's it been used for in the past would be helpful.
We can ask Knox County Schools to share that information with council, but we don't have it tonight.
And ma'am, if I could, a lot of grants have that type language, you know, where really we can decrease the amount. But if we were to increase,
Somehow your mic got cut off.
we would have to increase if we had to increase the amount, we would have to come back to council. Okay, but it's in there so that we could decrease it if we did. I never know of us having decreased.
Okay, so it's a ceiling. Thank you, Mr. Evans. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11F is a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and, if awarded, accept a community sparking investment in transformative energy grant from the United States Department of Energy's Office of State and Community Energy Programs in an amount of up to $3,600,000 with a local match of 5% to be covered by a community partnership with East Tennessee Clean Fuels to provide funding for programs that would deliver direct local community benefits regarding energy efficiency and clean energy projects for disadvantaged communities.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
12A is an ordinance to approve and adopt the fiscal year 2025 to 2030 Knoxville Capital Improvements Program, including the fiscal year 2025 capital improvements budget, City of Knoxville applicant.
Motion made to approve and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-1.
12B is an ordinance approving the request of Homestead Land Holdings LLC for an amendment to the Northwest City Sector Plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential office for property located at 0 Broom Road and at 7700 and 7708 Middlebrook Pike, 2nd District.
Okay, motion made to approve. Is there a second? No one signed up to speak on this, is there? Wait. 12B others, one person signed up to speak in favor and 3 signed up to speak in opposition. We'll start with the person in favor, Thomas Krajewski. If you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. Thomas Krajewski, 122 Perimeter Park Drive, here representing Homestead Land Holdings, the applicant for this item and the following 2 items that are related to the same property. We agree with planning staff's recommendation and planning commission's recommendation and request your consideration and support of this item and the next 2 items behind it. Really would like to make myself available to answer any questions that council may have.
Okay, Mr. Krajewski, if you have any more that you want to share with council, if they have questions, they'll probably ask you during the course of their conversation rather than right now.
I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we have 3 people signed up to speak in opposition to item 12B. First is Leland Hume. Mr. Hume.
Good evening. My name is Lee Hume. I'm president of the West Hills Community Association, live at 6902 Haverhill Drive, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37909. Last Wednesday, the West Hills Community Association hosted a special meeting with the developer interested in developing the land at the corner of Broom and Middlebrook. Thomas Krajewski, VP of Land Development for Homestead Land Holdings, and one of his associates represented the developer. Also in attendance were several West Hills neighbors. We understand the plan is to build between 25 and 30 townhouses on the 2.8-acre parcel. In order to move forward in their plans, HLH must first rezone the property from its current low-density rezoning RN2 to a higher-density residential zoning RN5. Here are the concerns expressed by the neighborhood. Number one, the developer's commitment to fulfilling the proposed project. Number two, the quality of the project and compatibility with the adjacent homes. Number three, assurances that the project will not be a multifamily project, such as an apartment. Number four, assurances that it will not be a commercial retail, possible gas station, commercial type development. We're trying to maintain the integrity of our neighborhood, and all the properties that surround this are residential, and the wishes of the neighborhood are to maintain the residential character of the neighborhood. Number five, establish a natural buffer between the development and the adjacent properties. Number six, access to the site. Both Broome and Middlebrook have unique traffic challenges, which we've been assured will be addressed at the proper time following this procedure by your body. Number seven, last concern is street lighting pollution. We've requested that the developer work with the community to avoid lighting coming into the neighborhood from the property, and we've been assured that that would not be an issue. Mr. Krajewski stated it is too early to have answers to specific questions, and we understand and respect that position, knowing where we are in the process. So with that in mind, the biggest question for West Hills and our neighbors is our confidence in the developer to fulfill their plan to build townhouses compatible with immediate neighbors and the neighborhood, and with a good faith understanding that HLH will work with West Hills community to make their plans a reality and resolve any issues that the community may raise, and their willingness to work with us has expressed at the community meeting. West Hills Community Association supports the rezoning of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person signed up to speak is Ron Atanasio. If you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes.
Good evening. Ron Atanasio, 812, no, Atanasio is the correct pronunciation, Mayor. 812 Bennett Place. Very briefly, echo, parrot what Lee just spoke about. We had a great meeting. It was open, honest, and direct. We look forward to having the property developed in the manner that Mr. Krajewski presented, and we ask that you approve it. Thank you.
Okay. Next person signed up to speak. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Schuler cannot be here. He just asked that I express the same sentiment to the council, and we thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council members, that concludes the people who signed up to speak on this item. Councilmember Roberto.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the developer and the neighborhood for getting together last week. I think this is just another highlight of how important it is to have everybody get together, because you know, the neighborhood and the property are always going to be neighbors for longer than any of us will be around to see what happens. So I'm really glad that they all got together. I'm glad that the concerns of the neighborhood were addressed, and they were restated by Mr. Hume here tonight, and that Mr. Krajewski was able to give him some assurances about what they were going to do. These are, you know, talking about a commitment to a project. You know, I think what the neighborhood is just saying there is, you know, they're being presented with a proposal, and they want to have assurance that, hey, we're really trying to do this project that we're doing here. And so I was glad in our conversations to hear the same kind of thing from you all as well, that this is, you're doing similar projects, as I recall, and that you've been committed to getting those done as well. And, you know, just a commitment to quality of the product that you're going to end up with, that it's going to be in line with what the neighborhood is expecting to work with, seeing traffic concerns addressed. There are challenges on Broom Road. You know, there's certainly some consideration for some investments there that have been, you know, probably long overdue. But certainly as you get to where you're approaching Middlebrook there, you end up with that hill that can make it the turn blind, and it just presents itself with a dangerous situation. So in conjunction with this development, it'd also be nice if we could, you know, look into whether there's some improvements there that need to occur. The natural buffer, you know, certainly the surrounding direct neighbors, I think having a natural buffer makes sense. And then just considerations for light pollution. I mean, that's a normal concern whenever you're seeing something being built next door to you. So I think all those are great. I just wanted to highlight this is a really great example of everyone getting together and having a conversation and coming up with a solution. And also, you know, Middlebrook is, you know, one of our corridors. So certainly having some additional housing along our corridors is something that not only I support, but I think everyone on council supports. And what I'm hearing from the neighbors is the dramatic support for that as well. So I think all in all, this is a good story about everyone getting together and being able to work together on something. So I'm glad the neighborhood supports it. And I think it's already been made a motion, so I'll just second the motion.
Okay. Did you want to consolidate the items?
Let me do that too. I also want to consolidate, see, it's items 12B, 12C, and 12D, and we'll just be able to vote on those once.
Okay. Motion made to consolidate items 12B, C, and D has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion to consolidate carries. Now that voting on the consolidated motion of all three items, is there a motion on that? It's been made and seconded. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
12E is an ordinance approving the request of BIR Investments LLC for an amendment to the Central City Sector Plan from light industrial to heavy industrial for a portion of property located at 2635 Western Avenue, 5th District.
Yes, Mayor, 12E, 12F, and 12G are the same subject matter, and I'd move to consolidate those.
Okay, motion's been made to consolidate items 12E, F, and G. Has been made and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Councilmember Parker? On the consolidation? No. All those in favor of the consolidation, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion to consolidate carries. Councilmember Parker, do you have questions or comments on items E, F, and G?
Is anyone here from this development?
Someone is here, so
I have
if
a
you
few
could,
questions.
Ms. Parker and council members may have some questions for you, so if you could just make yourselves available near the podium, please.
Thank you. Could you tell us more about what's planned for this property?
Yes, so basically, this is going to be a
Excuse me,
property-
if you could just state your name and address for the record,
Sure.
and then,
Simran Sani, and then the address is 26, yeah.
And I'm Jimmy Singh Jr.
Okay.
Yeah, so the property will be used for processing and recycling of construction materials and aggregates. So basically, just taking like used concrete and building materials and basically recycling them so we can use them again as aggregate material.
Okay, cool. And is that CMC Recycling?
No, so CMC is what borders that is bordering the land that we're trying to rezone. And so basically,
Gotcha.
they're already zoned as heavy industrial.
Gotcha, perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you. That's
thank
all
you.
I had.
Appreciate it.
Okay, any further questions or discussion? Councilmember Thomas.
Yeah, just a bit of a follow-up is I've had a lot of discussions about this particular site, and I do appreciate questions that come up sometimes when we go from heavy industrial, but this particular area is buffered all the way around by industrial sites. I've reached out to the neighborhood. I haven't heard any objections yet. It's on first reading. If I hear objections between now and the second one, we'll bring those to your attention. But I will be moving to approve.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, motion made and seconded. Councilmember Parker.
I just wanted to clarify, and thank you for that additional information. The buffer is one thing I wanted to hear about. But over and all, I do have concerns about this area and the residential that's nearby, and I'm sensitive to more heavy industrial being added to the area. And one question, I'll go ahead and ask it, is when we have rezoning requests like this, is there some sort of environmental impact assessment that's made to see if too much heavy industrial is being added to to an area? Anyone from planning or anyone?
Yes, Ms. Poirot?
Porche.
Porche, yes,
Yes.
thank you,
Hi.
sorry.
We do
You
not-
could just say, since you're a little new to some of us, if you could just share your name and position with planning for us.
Sure. I'm Michelle Porche. I'm the Planning Services Manager with Knoxville, Knox County Planning. I'm happy to be here on behalf of planning tonight. Thank you. Yes, so we do not do any direct environmental impacts of industrial use overall for the city or the county. If there is an environmental use that's going to a different use, then sometimes there's remediation and things like that, but we don't really look at that, and particularly not for a rezoning phase, but there's not any studies like that that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or discussion? The motion for the consolidated items was made and seconded. Right? Did someone second your motion? Okay. Then all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Let's see, now we have public forum. First, we have 4 people signed up for public forum. The first is Ed Patrick. Mr. Patrick, if you could approach the podium and start by stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Is this the, this is the, here, yes, it is.
The microphone's on, you're right at the right
Okay,
place.
thank you. Ed Patrick, 37915 First District. Mayor, if you wouldn't mind giving me an oral heads up with 30 seconds before the end of my
course.
remarks, I'd appreciate that.
Your 5 minutes starts now.
I can't see you, okay. First of all, I want to say I apologize for extending the meeting even 5 minutes, but this issue has been gnawing at me and I need to speak. Second of all, I'm sorry I missed it last week or last meeting. I was scheduled to appear and I ran out of gas. But this time I still have a little gas left. So I want to say first that I drafted a draft resolution for this council to consider on Gaza back in late last year in November or December and gave it to Mr. Johnson for distribution, which I'm assuming he did. Councilwoman Parker submitted a far better resolution. Thank you, Councilwoman. And I felt that it was a legitimate exercise of the council's discretion. But when then Councilman Smith articulated in his typically lucid way why he was not going to support it, I reflected that this was an issue where reasonable minds can differ. And I wanted to just establish the fact that I had submitted this resolution to establish my street creds with my young friends who aren't here tonight, but who have been here and here and here and here. So on the merits, I agree with my young friends, but on the procedural aspect, since this was an issue where reasonable minds can differ, I receded, and I think now is the time to roll up our sleeves and do something different. So the second point I want to make is that, is that I apologize. I apologize to everybody up there on the dais on behalf of no one but myself. My young friends would not support that, but in fact, I believe that they have exceeded the bounds of reasonableness in the terms of the law. They have, in fact, way exceeded the bounds of reasonableness in their repeated vitriolic attacks on council. You are not human footballs, and you should not be kicked around like that. I know that there may be people who say, well, that's a First Amendment right. It may be a First Amendment right, but it is a wrong to be disrespectful. Maybe it's not illegal, but it is certainly offensive. And people who watch the show on the telly are saying to themselves, what's going on in city council? What are these antics of these people? So I want to just say to my young friends who are not here, I'm with you on the merits. I respect your passion and your intelligence, but I entreat you to keep a civil tongue in your head. You people should not be abused for working as hard as you do. And that's all I got. I want to just say namaste and salam.
Thank you, Mr. Patrick. Next person signed up to speak is R. Bentley Marlowe. Mr. Marlowe, if you could approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you'll have up to 5 minutes to address council.
Hi, Bentley Marlowe, 322 Douglas Avenue, Knoxville, Tennessee, 37921. It's no secret I own a lot of property here in the city and pay a lot of property taxes. And I pay a lot of sales and use tax. That's local tax option, stays with the city to a great degree. So I have a fairly vested interest in the budget, and I'm glad that we've got through that and passed it. I'm very supportive and happy that our police department got a pay raise. I'm disappointed that we don't see a comparable pay raise for our fire department. They also wear a uniform and conduct very important and dangerous work for our city, without which we would not have a city. And the fire department works closely on protecting property, which is the basis of our property taxes that funds the whole city. So I think that was a very unfortunate event that we didn't find funding for them. I'm also disappointed with all the talk about housing and affordable housing and increasing our housing stock, that some very low-cost options are not being pursued, and that would be a reform of our Plans Review and Inspections Department. We have a clunky system at best. We've had numerous consultants over the years give us recommendations which still have not been fully implemented. And we have, quite frankly, from my point of view, an out-of-control administrator in Mr. Ahrens that is complicating the process to improve homes, to restore homes that have been blighted to the property rolls, and to have them as functioning housing units. He is currently trying to administratively destroy a single-family home in the Park City area by claiming that because the homeowner turned off the power for several years to save money during the COVID crisis, and now she has tried to turn the power back on, that somehow it's lost its status as a home and now is only an accessory structure that cannot be habitated. This is ongoing, been going on since January. These are the type of frustrating problems that are being presented by Mr. Ahrens and his department that are stopping and slowing our increasing housing stock in this city. That cost virtually nothing to fix the bureaucratic nightmares, to lower the bar with what's required to get a permit. We don't need tons and tons of drawings. The state doesn't require it. And, you know, we've also, the state's being very proactive, and I find this shocking as an individual who's, you know, I'm both a resident of the city of Knoxville and of the state of Tennessee, and in a lot of ways, I'm frustrated with our state legislature and some of their roles and positions, but when it comes to housing, they're doing more than we are as a city that claims to be committed to housing, and I find that utterly flabbergasting. For example, the governor, just a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, on May the 6th, signed a bill into law that allows us now to build triplexes and quadplexes under the residential building code. That means no fire sprinklers. It means they can be built at a much lower cost, and the state fire marshal says that they will be or are just as effective for life safety. Why are we not discussing adopting that immediately? That paired with our missing middle that we've already passed would be a huge incentive for making housing more affordable. And in Ms. Parker's point, if we take the amount of money that we're handing out in the Affordable Housing Fund and we look at the doors that we're creating, it's $400,000 per unit. The units being built by Mr. Boyd down by the baseball stadium are $300,000 a unit in their market rate. How is this affordable? How is this sustainable? I don't think it's a very good stewardship of our money. So if we want to get to the heart of affordable housing, we need to use the tools and resources that our state legislature is giving us and that are right here in our own house and getting it in order. Streamlining the process to get permits, reducing the burden and the delay in issuing permits, having administrators that don't start with a position of no, you can't save that house, or no, you can't get that permit. And let's get to a operating philosophy of yes, we will help you get where you want to be. That simple change in mindset of going from an automatic no, we're going to frustrate you this and make this as complicated and as cumbersome as possible, to getting to a mindset of we're going to help the people as they come in to get to yes. Whatever you want to do with your property, within reason, we will help you get to yes, would be a huge and low-cost method to enhance our affordable housing. I guess I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Rick Roach.
Rick Roach, Knoxville. Just sitting in the meeting, watching, observing primarily. I know government is supposed to be semi-functional. And this budget process, again, I'd really like to know what each council person would have in mind to adjust the budget, what amendments you would just like to put on the table before you vote on the entire budget that the administration presents. And maybe be a partner, true partner in the budget process. Maybe you all talk and help formulate some of that. I don't know. But priorities are not, they're not lining up with the needs of the people, to be honest with you. Mr. Marlowe said something interesting about the whole process. Don't start with a no. Okay, just in the functioning of governing, and we've had multiple people get up here who are working out in the community, doing good work, hard work. Well, I want to thank you for mentioning low barrier housing, but I wish we could get into the nuts and bolts of why we even have to have that conversation about low barrier housing. Because when I bogarted the Justice Knox City County coming together to talk about homelessness, one of the things I had to bogart to get in. Okay, but then I was told, oh well, Mr. Roach, hey, you know what? You're considered a member of the community, an advocate in the community. Okay, well, there are other people who are doing the work who weren't invited. The people who are really doing the work are doing the work. and some of them have had the rug pulled out from under them, okay? In terms of funding and things like this, and the city won't make a commitment. The city wants to give us all these explanations about why it's, quote, not their fault. And that's fine, that's okay. You know, you don't want to take responsibility at any level, that's fine. But, man, we can't continue to keep doing this kind of stuff and think that it's going to be helping people, because it's not. It's not. And we need to be seriously talking about the relationships between the county government and the city government. When we create an entity, Office of Housing Stability, but you have to partner with, and by the way, you create a task force for one simple item that would benefit the city of Knoxville. I'm going to say it, alternative response. Okay? I'm going to say it. And you create a task force that's going to make it take another year, year and a half to get something established and get an entity that this city really needs into the community and serving the people that need it. Okay? You make things more difficult than it has to be. Okay? Fire department can't, y'all should have gave them a 12% increase, the way I'm looking at it. But long ago. Okay? You got priorities. I don't, priorities. And you can talk about, every time somebody criticizes you, Mayor, here's what you go. You go, well, I just want to let everybody know that we're doing this and doing, when we've done this and blah, 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 blah. And it really doesn't amount to diddly squat. And you need to cut that out, okay? Because it's disingenuous at best.
Okay, thank you. Next person signed up for public forum is Mr. Smith, Dan Smith. You have up to 5 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. I'm still under oath, so everything's the same. I want to take a page from Umoja Abdul Ahad's book. He's a wise man, and he said a lot of things that are true, although he's been poo-pooed sometimes over the year. But I agree with him that $40 million grant that we got from DOT should not in any way go toward the $100 million initiative regarding urban renewal. They are not compatible. There's just no way you can rationalize it. Now, you may say, well, he's a white boy and he don't know what he's talking about. You'd be 50% right. I've read often about Knoxville's plight with regard to urban renewal, and I've heard what Bob Booker had to say about it and what he had to write about it. The $40 million is going to go in, and if we're careful with it, other than what we've done with some other federal grants, we'll have something to show for it. But it's not going to make up for the chaos and the loss of urban renewal. There are answers. Other cities have taken action. Check them out for best practices. I think that's a proper term. Look right here in our own city at the Central Business Improvement District, which has been around for over 20 years, which is a special taxing district. I'm not saying copy CBID. I'm saying use CBID as a template. It's worked. It's been successful. And there is a way to develop some money for just African Americans where where it would fit. There are people who work for the city, and I know some of them, and there are some other ones who are gone now, but there are a lot of smart people who work for the city, and there are a lot of smart people in the private sector who will be more than willing to contribute. So that's my opinion. I could be wrong. I appreciate the opportunity that there is a public forum, and I wish you all a good, healthy evening. I have a minute and a half left. If you all have any constituents who would like to revive the Council of Involved Neighborhoods coin, check with me. There's still a bylaws. There may even still be some money in the bank. Coin was the progenitor of many inner city things and goes back way back before I even moved here in the 80s. And there's still all you have to do is reinstate it. It's still a 501c3. Thank you. Oh, God, still got time.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Council members, that concludes public forum. Without objection.
Wait, I don't see so well. Who's speaking?
Yeah, Mr. Smith, you sort of stepped away, so I assumed you were done. Are you? This clock was stopped, so thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.